Welcome to Folding Towels, a podcast for massage therapists with Jackie and David. If you are enjoying our episodes and want to support the production, consider buying us a coffee. Your contributions help us bring you more insightful discussions and expert interviews. Follow the link in the show notes or visit buymeacoffee.com/Folding Towels podcast to contribute, and thank you for your support.
Hello, everybody. It is another fantastic week at the Folding Towels podcast. Hi, David.
Hey, Jackie. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I've been out for a run this morning.
Nice. Got your exercise in for the day?
I did. Got my steps in. Enjoyed the
Lovely.
sunshine before the change comes through.
Yeah, the weather is a bit crazy at the moment, here in Adelaide anyway, so...
Yeah, made sure I got my lungs full of pollen and it's all good.
Yeah, spring, the season that everybody hates.
Yeah.
We have a fantastic, very exciting guest today, David.
Oh,
Do you want to tell us who it is? I'm so excited for today.
I'd be interested to know how many massage therapists have a blue jar with silver writing in their room. Because we are joined today by Randall Cooper, the founder and the CEO of Premax. Randall is an internationally recognized APA-titled specialist sports physiotherapist with over 25 years of experience. And as a fellow of the Australian College of Physiotherapists and an adjunct senior lecturer at La Trobe University, he's played a crucial role in the success of Olympic champions and professional athletes. He is also the co-author of Clinical Sports Medicine. And Randall's journey began at the age of 16 after a skiing accident left him with a torn ACL and MCL, sparking his commitment to helping others overcome physical challenges. While less present in the clinic today, although I think you've now finished up your clinical work, his commitment is to helping others overcome physical challenges. And his passion is for promoting active and healthy lifestyles and drives Premax, a reflection of his dedication to facilitating knowledge sharing through Learn.Physio and an online education platform for health professionals. Welcome today, Randall.
David and Jackie, thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I also have been looking forward to chatting with you today and really keen to get stuck into it.
This is a great day for us. So it's great to meet you whilst we're not in person, to actually see your face and not just the silver signature on the blue jar.
That's it's funny you say that, because there's a number of people who will say that they know my signature now, but if they walked down me and saw me in the street, I'd be a nobody. So that's actually totally fine with me.
My question is it your real signature?
It is a little bit different, actually. I remember when for those people who have used Premax for a while, you might remember it came in a white jar.
Yeah,
with some colourful kind of colours on the side of it there for the first probably 8 or 9 years of Premax existence. And when we went through the exercise of changing the branding, the designers said, we really think that you should put your signature on it because it's your cream. And then they put a focus group together, and all the people in the focus group said the same thing as well. I was a bit reluctant because I really wanted just Premax to be Premax, and if people knew that, like I was behind it, well, that's great. But I really was a little bit shy about kind of having that signature on. And then I said, I better make sure that it's not the same signature that's on my passport too. So, it's close. That it is actually my handwriting. That it's not what I'll sign my back checks with. That's for sure.
Excellent.
You're Australia's Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk, like the skateboarder.
Yeah. Nobody really knows what he looks like, but because he's known for skateboarding and the game that he has out, obviously. But yeah,
I haven't
apparently
heard that
nobody
name in
knows
20
what he looks
years,
like.
Jackie.
Oh my gosh! Come on, David, get with it.
He's still going around, and he's still terrific. So
yeah.
I will take that comparison very kindly, Jackie. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Now, before we kick off with the serious questions, there is something that we ask all of our guests, Randall. Who is your superhero and why?
My favourite superhero is Batman. And I'm old enough to remember Batman being a spoofy kind of 60s TV show. I remember the replays on there, and I found it all a bit cringy and weird. And then as I went through my teenage years and then my early kind of adulthood, that's when all those 90s movies kind of came out and it became darker. And I suppose it was very similar to me, that I was a jovial young kid. And then you start to kind of get a bit more moody as you get into your teens and your early 20s, etc. And I just loved those movies. And I loved everything that Batman kind of became. And some of those movies have become iconic now. And so, yeah, if I was going to be a superhero, I think I'd be Batman.
Nice.
Now let's get specific. Which one?
A bit of a George Clooney fan, but I don't think that he was the best Batman going around. I think, again, just because I was that impressionable age, I'd probably pick Michael Keaton. I know Christian Bale is kind of like the guy who everyone says has been the best, but just because of the change in tone of the Batman movies, I'd go with Michael.
I love from a clinical perspective when clients come in and they're kind of locked through the cervical area and they demonstrate the Batman movement. Actually, you can't see me because my video's decided to freeze. As they turn their whole upper body to look left and right. You go, yes, Batman from Adam West.
Yes. No, I get it.
Michael Keaton is a favorite of mine as well. I do love Christian Bale. I think he's probably one of the best, but Michael Keaton, absolute second. And he's an amazing actor. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. So yeah, I love these choices.
I also love the co-stars that came into it. And again, just as kind of my era, I suppose, but everyone from Danny DeVito to Arnold Schwarzenegger to Heath Ledger, who, obviously was just amazing in The Dark Knight. All those kind of co-stars in it made it what it was. It was just a roll call of Hollywood's who's who.
They're great movies.
Now, you've had quite a remarkable career, including attending the Winter Olympics, working at Olympic Park Sports Medicine Centre with names like Peter Bruckner, who was on Stuart Hines' recent Talking Tissue podcast. Highly recommend that episode. And people like Rob Granter. And you've developed protocols around ACL assessment and rehabilitation and contributed to some of the quintessential textbooks for anyone who works in the sports medicine industry. Can you take us on a journey of your career and what got you into physiotherapy and what has kept you interested to today?
Well, you touched on it, David, in your intro, where when I was 16 years old, I remember going to my parents, and I was a reasonably kind of clever, capable kid at school, but I just had enough. And I said I wanted to become a chef. And my parents, fortunately, kind of talked me out of leaving school at 16 and at least get yourself through the end of year 12. But then I just had a tough year. I had a tough year where I had that skiing accident. That was in July, where I did my ACL and my MCL, and that needed a reco. And back in those days, that was actually quite a big operation. I think I was in hospital for 3 days. I was non-weight bearing for, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks in a cast, a semi-movable cast. So it's not the same as where people are walking out of surgery these days the following day. But then that was just part A, because part B is in September. It was 3 months later. I actually acquired a condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neurological condition. It's got similarities to MS, where the myelin sheaths around your nerves are demyelinated, usually after a viral infection. And I went from being a reasonably healthy kind of 16-year-old guy post ACL to intensive care, where I could not move a muscle, and I was close to having to be intubated to breathe.
That's frightening.
Yeah, so I had the double whammy that year of both the knee injury and then the neurological condition as well. And fortunately, I recovered and got better from it all. But I was just exposed to medicine. I was exposed to a lot of physiotherapy. I was exposed to exercise science to kind of build me back to kind of being a normal, by the time I got better, it was like 17 or 18-year-old kid. So it was a transformational kind of period for me. And it's not unusual for, a lot of people in health to have had similar kind of situations in their life where they have been exposed. And I suppose the thing that really impressed on me was that two things. The first one was I just found it extremely interesting. The human body, I just thought that was amazing. And I couldn't get enough learning. I just needed to kind of continue to have a better understanding of how the body worked, and it just struck a passion in me. On an emotional, personal side, the health professionals that helped me through that challenging period, I found were just amazing people. And I kind of got out of that situation and thought, if I can make an impact on someone else's life the same way that these people did on me, then what a great career and what a great life. And I've never forgotten all that. And I suppose even now that, I'm not kind of as hands-on as what I was as a clinical therapist, I hope that, like with the Premax products and the educational material that we've got on Learn.Physio, etc., helps people do that for others now. And I suppose as you kind of get older and more senior kind of in your years, it's really, for me, my passion is still there for the same things that were there when I was 17. But now I feel like it's for me almost to inspire and to help the younger generation to kind of do that for others as well. So I can't see myself getting out of the physio, health, kind of exercise science space for the rest of my career. And I'm delighted about that. I've just found a real niche, and I've been delighted to be in it.
Mm. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like to work at the Olympic Park Sports Medicine Centre? It was quite a pioneering centre when it was established.
Well, yeah, that's right. And I remember even when I was in year 12, maybe I was first or second year university, I remember driving past there, and I used to say to whoever was in the car with me, I want to work at that centre, like, because they're known as the best sports medicine centre in Melbourne. And back in those days, there were the big three. There was the Olympic Park Sports Medicine Centre, there was Horan Sports Medicine Centre, and Elphinton Sports Medicine Centre. So I wanted to work at one of them, but Olympic Park was always my first kind of guess. You mentioned I'll tell you kind of like the Peter Bruckner story as well, because they rarely or didn't really kind of just take new graduate physios in there. I really had to kind of work my way in, and I did. I worked at some suburban practices for a while, and then I kind of got an introduction into the team at Olympic Park probably about 2 years after I'd graduated. And one of the other positions that I had is actually ran the physio and massage clinic up at Mount Buller for 3 years, just during the winter ski seasons, which I loved. And I think it must have been my second or third year there. And I remember this man came down with his daughter, and he introduced himself and said, "Hi, my name's Peter Bruckner." And my daughter, who was I think only 15 or 16 at the time, has got a dodgy knee and she's finding it difficult to ski. Can you please help her? And at this stage, I'd started to kind of interact with the people at Olympic Park, so I'm sure he knew what I was doing, and I knew instantly at that point, oh, this is my test. Peter's one of the most famous sports doctors is bringing his daughter down here, and this is basically kind of like a live exam. So I must have done something right, because after that, I kind of got the job at Olympic Park, and it was a terrific centre. It still is. The thing I really loved about it, and we spoke about this just a little bit before we kind of came on here, David, is that it is a true multidisciplinary clinic. And, when I started, I think there must have been about 14 or 15 physios, probably a dozen or so, 10 or 12 sports physicians, visiting orthopedic surgeons, 4 or 5 really well qualified, experienced softies that were in there as well, dietitians, podiatrists, etc. And the great thing about it was there was a culture of just learning from each other, and we weren't really kind of protective of it. And if you listen, I haven't listened to kind of Peter's podcast with Stuart Hines, for instance, but Peter will kind of credit softies and physios and podiatry with a lot of what he'd learned in sports medicine. And just because he was exposed to that, he just didn't stay in his kind of medical silo and just talked about procedures and injections and scans. Like, he will dry needle, he will do mobs, he will kind of even do some soft tissue stuff when he's been working, with athletes at that time. And for me, to actually go and spend time with soft tissue therapists and just see all how they, I've got tight glutes and a painful lower back, and send them in to get a little bit of hands-on work. in combination with what I did as well, but just see how they did it differently. And it was a wonderful kind of learning experience because you learn off everyone else. So I suppose for those people who are listening, and I suppose, for soft tissue therapists generally, it can be a bit of a challenge at times because most of you will kind of work in smaller clinics, sometimes adjacent to kind of other health professionals. And it can be an effort to kind of get out and learn from others. You will act. It was easy for me because I could just go to the room next door when I wanted to. But for others who actually have to leave the clinic, go somewhere different, I'd really encourage people to do that because experience matters and learning from others is crucial. And not only for your own skills, but also just to get an appreciation of what those other professionals do. Like if you're aligned with a chiropractic clinic, for instance, I'd really encourage people to spend time with those chiropractors to kind of really get a true sense. So when you're sharing your patient, your client, between the chiro and yourself or the physio and yourself, and they start talking about some of the exercises they've given or some of the techniques they've done, then you can work in harmony and synchrony with that therapist. And that's from a business point of view, that's terrific because like you're on the same page, and it's great for your skills, but it's also great for your referrals.
How would you suggest that soft tissue therapists start to build relationships? A lot of us work independently and would have to build relationships with other independent therapists. How would you suggest that we go about building those relationships?
I think that doing it in person is really important. I think that, like, if I use my example of how I did it with my kind of patient list and what I needed to do, is I had a deep interest after my skiing injury, and my clinical expertise for most of my career has been ACL rehabilitation, no surprise. And for me, I needed a lot of referrals from orthopedic surgeons. So I did a few things to make sure that I got those relationships and also those referrals. The first one was that I went and observed them. I rang them up or sent them an email and said, would really love just to come in and sit on one of your sessions, both in theatre, so I could actually see them operating, and then I had a better understanding of kind of what that procedure was, but also in their rooms, because that the way they handle and the way they assess a knee, for instance, is just so different to kind of like the way we did it. And then demonstrate an understanding of kind of what's going on and ask good questions, at that time. Like, that was a really brief exam. Like, how do you get away with it so quickly? And then they'll, give you the information. Well, 80% of the way I'll kind of come up with that diagnosis of torn ACL is from the subjective history, for instance. It's like, wow, I never knew that. So those kind of conversations where you kind of observe them and then you start to interact with them, I think is really important. So that would kind of be the first thing. I think, so with the softies, for instance, like, go along to the physios, spend a couple of hours with them, ask the questions. The second thing is that there will be windows of opportunity when you do get a referral. Sometimes you don't even get a referral. You may just get a patient or a client that has seen someone else and they've come to you and said, oh, they've suggested I just get some massage, so I found you online and, here I am. Use that as an opportunity to develop a new relationship and talk to them, ring them, write them a letter, show, your professionalism and also your enthusiasm for kind of helping their patient, because you've got a mutual interest in getting that person better together. So if that can kind of come across as well, I think that's super important. A lot of people really get hung up on skills and education and training, but you'll find that, in my experience, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, that the practitioners that become successful in a business sense and are busy all the time are the ones who usually care the most. And that kind of comes through, with the way that you not only talk to your patient, but you also then start communicating with other people kind of in that caring team. So if you are sharing kind of like a patient with somebody else, if you can demonstrate that level of care to that other health professional as well, I think that you'll get some additional business there as well. And then I suppose the third thing is that I think that it's important to ensure that you've got a really solid online presence. now for both clients, but also, referring health practitioners as well. Because I would get it all the time where, as I kind of got more experienced with my clinical expertise in knees and ACLs and whatever, I would get people from all around the state and even kind of all around the country kind of coming to see me for an opinion. And I can only do so much in a session or two. And then I'd say, okay, I live in Wonthaggi or, Sydney or whatever. I need to see someone. And it's like, do you know anyone there? It's like, well, I can kind of ring around, or I'll just have a look online and see who I think looks good as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you've got a clean professional profile online that demonstrates all those things that I spoke before about your understanding, your knowledge, your care, how you care for people, etc., then you might find that the internet kind of helps you as much as kind of like those physical referrals from others as well. So that'll be the three things I'd suggest people look at.
Yes.
I get that all the time, people asking, do you know somebody? And they might live like 45, 50 minutes away from me, or I'm trying to find someone. And
yes.
Then you ask in the network, and it happens quite a lot, I think.
I agree.
You've worked with some amazing athletes. How has that shaped your experience and the way that you care for your clients?
I think that the elite athlete population is a unique set of people. There's definitely some similarities between how you'd manage a high-level athlete and how you'd manage someone who's not. And there are also, some significant differences as well. So maybe I'll kind of touch on some of the similarities to start with. I think the first thing is that you realize after working with high-level athletes for a while is that they're not all of these. They're individuals. They are people with personalities, and there are differences between them. We think of this elite athlete population as this cohort that's kind of superhuman, and they're all kind of ubiquitous, if that makes sense. But they're not. They have different injury profiles. Some of them, like have horrendously tight hamstrings. Other ones, hypermobile. Some people have got, terrific strength, and other people suck at core stability. Like all these things is that they're definitely not perfect, and everyone is different. And I think that that's something that you've got to treat those athletes as individuals as well as kind of like the general public as well. One of the cliches I've also used in my clinical practice for ages is that everyone is an athlete. We're just we're just at different levels, because we all need to perform physically. And even if you think about, the tasks of an office worker, for instance, is that people need to sit down in a static position for 8 hours a day. It's not easy, and things need to be done to kind of counteract those stresses. No different to someone who plays AFL football, for instance, and you go, they are getting absolutely hammered through their hammies and their quads and their back and whatever because of the training load. Well, in a similar way, like, the hip flexors and the lower back and the neck are getting hammered for an office worker, because that's what they have to do physically all day as well. So I think that we all need to have some level of physical performance to do what we do, whether it's with sport or whether it's just with day life. And if you can actually start to kind of drill into your clients' and patients' minds that they are a physical specimen and athlete as well, it can change their mindset and differently as well. The other thing I think also is that, and I'm sure you guys, soft tissue, see this probably more than anyone else, and that is that everyone has issues in their life that are peripheral to their injury or their back or the issue they're coming to, that can affect them physically. So they might be having trouble with their relationship or stress with their job, or their kids not going so well, and that can have its effect on kind of like the condition that they're coming forward to see for. And that definitely can happen with athletes as well. You think, like I've put together this treatment regime and it's not responding. Then you drill into the detail in their history a little bit more, and understanding that, their dad's very unwell or something like that, then those things can manifest themselves kind of physically as well. So there's some of the similarities that we kind of have between the general population and high-level sports people, but there are some differences as well, because one of the questions I'll get all the time is like, I've just injured my hamstring, for instance. I've got a grade 2 injury. You're telling me that's going to take me 10 to 12 weeks to get back. But that guy who plays football, he was back in 4. Like, why can they get back so quickly compared to us? Well, first of all, like, they have all the time in their day to dedicate to rehabilitating and getting stronger, or having treatment all day, every day, etc. So they've got more time available to work on what they need to do, whereas most of us have just got jobs and families and commitments, and it's hard to kind of squeeze in at least an hour of doing the right stuff, let alone kind of like the whole day. So that's number one. The second is it kind of ties into what I was talking about before, is that being an athlete is actually their job. So they, for those of you who, like, I don't know, we'll use my example as a ACL, for instance. Like, for me, when I was 16, I did my knee skiing. It's like, well, the rest of this season's out. I can go back next year. I'll just do some other stuff. Like, yeah, it was a bit of a bugger and it took me a while. For an athlete may signal the end of their career, and that's their livelihood. And I remember, I'm sure Paddy won't mind me kind of talking about this, but Paddy Kisnorbo, who played for the Socceroos and he was with Leicester City for a while, he was at the tail end of his career, and he did his, he did his ACL or his Achilles, I can't remember which one it was. And he said that, I've got 2 years left. I know this injury takes, usually 6 to 9 months to get better. I need to be back playing in 6 weeks. Either I'm cut or I'm out of the squad. So for that, it's clearly like a situation that's very unique compared to the general population, where you go, forget it, mate. Like, you just got to do the time. Whereas with Pat, like, it's okay, we'll have to work with you to try and get you back to kind of playing Premier League football in 6 to 8 weeks. Otherwise, it's a disaster for you. So that they do throw up those unique kind of situations. Then I suppose the final thing is that because of their base level fitness and also their strength and conditioning, that is another reason that they tend to accelerate through most injuries and injury concerns more quickly than kind of the general population as well. So there's some of the similarities and differences between treating elite people, but the similarities kind of outweigh actually the differences. So, yeah.
That's really interesting that you have said all that. I have so many things that I want to ask you now. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. We're here to chat, so I'm more than happy to chat about it.
Well, I really love that you have said that there are a lot more similarities between, everyday folk and elite athletes, because that's actually something that I tell my clients a lot, not in those specific words, but I'm like, you are sitting at a desk for 8 hours, or you're running around all day after the kids, or, whatever it is they're doing. It's a lot of work just living. We're constantly doing, lifting and driving all day and thinking a lot and using our brains, and everything becomes very stressful. It's really stressful being alive.
It is, and then you've got something that comes in on, because most people will, particularly like in Western culture here in Australia, they will pack their program. They'll kind of have a full day, and if you're old enough to kind of have a family and kids and whatever, it can get really quite busy and quite stressful. No one plans for contingencies, so it's like no one says, "Oh, I've just got a spare hour, every day to do my rehab or get treatment if I sprain my ankle or my back gets bad." So you've got to be able to kind of cram that kind of into people's normal day-to-day life. And in being a therapist, like, I always talk about the difference between the science of therapy and the art of therapy. And that's the art as well, is being able to kind of work with people to make sure that what needs to be done needs to get integrated in their life in a sensible way, rather than just kind of like having a checklist and saying, these are the 55 things that you need to do to get better. Off you go and do them, and just ignore the rest of their lives. It's a really important skill. And particularly with my area, with being ACLs, Like, it's not like I need to give you 2 exercises to do every day that take you 6.5 minutes. Like, I needed to give them an hour of rehab. So that's kind of key. And just while I'm thinking of it, I know I'm talking a lot, but it also kind of flows on to another thing that I think is a really important thing that you learn when you treat athletes as well. And that is you get to see, because you're with them all the time, you get to see them complete their course of therapy or treatment or rehab. And so often, like with like the public, for instance, what will happen is that we'll use a knee injury as an example. But let's say, we won't call it an ACL because it's a little bit different. But let's say it's a medial ligament injury, where it's usually really quite uncomfortable for 3 or 4 weeks, and then the pain goes. But as a therapist, as a physio, like, I really need to ensure that they regain full strength, full coordination, full fitness, and whatever before they go back and play sport. So they don't come back to me in 6 months' time with an ACL because they've been under rehabbed. Mm-hmm. Then the concern is that, or the tendency, I should say, is that pain's the biggest powerful motivator. So when pain's gone out the door, it's like, I feel good. My knee feels strong. The pain's gone. See you later. I don't need to come and see you anymore. And for a lot of therapists, it's like, great, like, I'm glad I could help. And you kind of wave them goodbye. But having that experience, kind of like with the athletes, is like, no, we're only halfway there, and be able to kind of communicate and have that experience to kind of see what that back end of kind of like that treatment course needs to be to get them fully better and to help prevent the next injury as well is crucial. So I think that's something that, for all your softies as well, is that it's easy to treat pain, but if you still want to kind of, see them get better, educate them early on in the process to say that this is not only to do with, like getting your pain level from 6 out of 10 down to 2 out of 10 for your neck, for instance, but I also need to kind of keep working on you, for another 3 or 4 sessions and whatever to improve the flexibility here, the range of motion, so you're not coming back and kind of complaining that I've fixed you up in another 6 weeks, for instance.
Anyway, when it does come to massage therapists, and you've talked about this a little bit already about having a really good online presence, how important is developing a personal brand, and what tips would you give for doing that well?
I think it's super important. It's such a people profession that you're talking and interacting, and it is quite intimate, for a better expression, in that you've got people who are on your table, usually with kind of disrobed, with not many clothes on. It's a one-on-one kind of experience, and people will judge you very quickly in that situation because of this. They can feel so exposed and vulnerable at times. So I think that, making sure that you kind of your personal brand from an end-to-end experience is really important. And as I said before, sometimes it's not just your skills that's kind of going to have you with a busy list. It's going to be the way that you interact and talk with people. So I think that's really important. I think that, if we think about kind of from the journey, from the client or the patient's perspective, I think it's good to kind of think of all those steps on the way through to make sure that the way that you do business and the way that you kind of care for people is consistent along that entire process. So for the first thing, like when you've got to think, all right, well, how are people going to come into contact with me or consider me at the start? It's going to be usually one of 2 things. It's either going to be a personal recommendation, whether that's by a health professional or someone who's already seen you, or it's going to be kind of on the website. So we've already spoken, about kind of making sure that your online profile matches the way that you kind of operate generally. And I won't go into too much detail with that, but I think that's really important. Then the second thing is that when they actually then start to consider you, what's your unique value proposition? What makes you different from everyone else? Now, if you're in a country town and you're the only person who's there, well, lucky you, like it's either you or no one. So you're probably going to get busy no matter what. But for most of us who kind of are living in a bigger, kind of city or town or whatever, there'll be a number of options, and you've got to think about what is different and what sets you apart. And that can definitely kind of be your education, your skill set, or your experience. But some people, it's like, well, I've only been out for a year, so, how can I kind of compete with others who have been in the game for 10 or 15 years and they've got all these kind of accolades and experience behind me? Well, maybe that's where you kind of start to look at experience. Oh, sorry, about service, or, that you do extra long consultations, or, there's something different, or it's the way that you kind of the even like your room, or the things that are a little bit different that are very nice. The business class kind of experience, kind of when people come through. Those are the type of things. If you look at other kind of industries, like going to restaurants, for instance, how that end-to-end experience can change and how people can value a lot of different things. So I think that, what you need to make sure that you stand out in some way, and that you're also targeting the audience that you want to target. And sometimes you'll see this with younger therapists is that they will talk about what is important to them, not necessarily, like what they've done, but it's like, I love treating footballers or something along that lines. Like, I've got a deep interest in the science of, football medicine or something along those lines. And then, okay, this person gets me. They've got a real avid interest in it. They may not have seen many people at all, but again, they're trying to distinguish and separate themselves kind of from the other people around that area. So with that target audience, like, then you need to kind of go out and talk to them somehow and try and get them in. So, using sports as an example, I know this is a very controversial kind of topic at the moment, but the old school kind of therapists will say, if football's your interest, go down for half a season and offer your services for an hour of training a week or something along those lines for no pay. But the younger therapists will say, no, I need to kind of go down there and kind of get paid for it or whatever. I suppose it doesn't really matter as long as you're kind of starting to kind of communicate and be part kind of that target audience that you want to kind of go for. Then I think we spoke about the online presence. I think also with a personal brand, you've got to really underline the word personal. And that is that if you're trying to be someone else, then you're not going to come across as authentic. Yes, you need to be polite and courteous and, pleasant to get on with and professional and whatever, but you also need to be authentic. And that authenticity will kind of be super important, and you've really got to let your personality kind of shine. We'll use Stewie Hines as an example, for instance. Like, Stewie's just got an infectious personality and an infectious enthusiasm for what he does, but I couldn't do it like he does. Like, if I tried to be Stuart Hines all day, I'd fall into a heap at 10:30 in the morning. I just don't have that much energy. So I have done it a little bit differently. So I think that's kind of, again, you've got to be true to yourself, and you have to be yourself, when you're kind of creating that personal brand. And then I think the last one is that people love you to be yourself, but also that level of professionalism. And I've been fortunate enough, and sometimes in many cases unfortunate enough to go and get treated by plenty of softies. And sometimes it's just a wonderful end-to-end experience. And other times I scratch my head and I just can't believe what's been done. And it's like your room's untidy. Like, you're basically kind of turning up with clothes that, that haven't been washed in 3 days. And I think that those things, like, that they, yeah, well, they stink, David. So it's like, like, come on, like, I'm paying $100 for this. Like, it's important.
That's totally unacceptable.
But it's happened. Maybe not in this country, but, like, it's all these things that rub off. So I think that your professionalism, the way that you kind of have your rooms, the way that you dress, making sure that you convey to your clients that you stay updated, like, with the latest stuff that's kind of going on. And I think probably the one thing that, from a physio's perspective and under the professionalism banner for softies, is that the frustration at times is where the soft tissues kind of will keep treating things that necessarily getting better or improving things for longer term. And they'll come to us after a while saying, I've had a dozen sessions with this person and I'm no better for it. And I think that that's where it kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier, and being super interested in them getting like over what they want to. I understand there's a lot of treatment, kind of like it's just maintenance treatment, and people love coming in regularly with the massage therapists. I get that, but if they are coming to you with an ailment, if you're not getting them better, or you feel like you don't know what's going on, refer it. And that's the other thing where you can kind of, build those networks really nicely is that I don't know what's going on. I'm really happy to help. I'd like to learn from this, but I'd like to get someone else involved, kind of like in your care. And you'll get 1 out of 100 where your client or your patient will get irritated with that, saying, I thought you knew everything. I came to you, for the solution. It's like, no, but 99 out of 100 of them will go, okay, thank you. I just want to get better, and it's important and I'm glad that you're part of it. And most of the time they will come back to you and say, can you please be still part of my team? It's like, of course I can, but let's do it as a team and get other people involved. So I think those things, when it comes to personal brand, are really important. Having your unique value proposition, nailing your target audience, make sure you're talking and communicating with that group, having a really solid online presence that matches everything that's about you and the way you want to be, making sure that you're super authentic and being yourself, and also a level of professionalism and integrating with the other therapists when things don't go to plan.
I've heard across a range of disciplines, people talk about owning their clients and their reluctance to refer because they've worked so hard to attract that person to their practice. And there's just this lack of understanding that the person is there to be well, and that they are in charge of their own journey, and they can go to see whoever they want to see. And I feel it's a great mark of credibility, whether it's at the first session or the third session, to say, hey, we want to move forward with this. You need to go and see somebody else, and to point them in that right direction. I think that speaks volumes to the therapist, and we shouldn't be afraid of a client not coming back, because I think they will respect us more for being pointed to where they need to be.
I know I'm a bit different because I'm a physio, but always my mantra has been, I'm just here to get this person better. And sometimes I will have people who come and see me twice, and then or once, and I'll just say, these are the things that you need to do, and I'm really sure that you're going to be better by just doing them for the next 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I'm here. So if things aren't going to plan, I will squeeze you in. I'll get you on my list. Just give me a call, let the girls at the reception know, and I'll make sure you're looked after. So I'm not booting you out and saying never come back. I'm saying I think you're going to be okay. And people kind of turn around and go, wow, that's the first time anyone has said that to me, because there can be the perception from the public that I'm just going to come in and get milked here. And, and you do get it with certain practitioners or whatever. It's like, great, I want that person as a lifelong patient. And if they are a lifelong patient because they want to be, and they ask that of you, no worries, no problem. But for me, again, I always thought my job is to get this person better, and I'll do it in the most efficient way that I can do it. I will get other people involved, etc., including the massage therapists. And if it's not for me, then I'll kind of refer it on. And it was, without sounding kind of arrogant, I had never a problem with building my list. I was flat out and full pretty much the whole of my career. And it was, I think, because people felt that I was on the same page as them, in that I'm just there to get them better and not for them to be a service to me and paying off my house.
Yes, totally.
I think for massage therapists, it's really, really important to know when to refer. For physiotherapists, it's probably not, I mean, you still need to know, but you're not maybe doing it as often. But for us, if somebody comes in expecting things that we can't do, we have to say, this is actually out of my scope. I'm not a physio, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a GP, but you need to see somebody else. And I think a lot of massage therapists sometimes don't know where to actually say, I actually do need to refer you to someone else because I love that you're coming in to look after yourself, but this is not going to get better because I don't have those skills.
Yeah, and I think the other really important consideration is to, and thing to do is to be at the start, to be super clear with your clients and your patients about what they've come to see you for, because some of them may come in, particularly to you softies, and kind of say, I just really feel that I need like a monthly treatment to keep me in check and keep me aligned and to keep me loose and all those kind of things. I'm trying to find someone who can see me once a month for the rest of my life. Fine. If that's what they want, then you say, all right, I can help you with that. And that's their goal and that's their ambition. That's very different to someone who comes in with back pain that they've had for 6 months and saying, I want you to help fix this back pain for me. Then I think that's a very different framework. And then your goal should be very much about doing what they want. And sometimes I think those two things get conflated, not only with softies, but also with anyone. It's like, great, I can, in the physio world, it's like, okay, I will help fix that person's back pain and then I can get them into a Pilates program for the next 3 years. Like, well, if they don't want that and they don't like Pilates, then I don't think you're offering them a service. So I think that's worth considering.
Well, you mentioned the words lifetime client before. That doesn't always mean that they're in every 3 or 4 or 6 weeks. They might come and see you for 2 years every month, and then they might not see you again for 2 or 3 years. But they might still be talking about you to their friends and referring people. So to me, like I fully understand that, seasons change, people have different needs at different times. I've had clients come back and see me after 5 years. And I think that's wonderful because they remembered me and thought about me. So yeah, I really think that it's very important for people, for particularly massage therapists, because we can tend to overdo it a little bit, but not expect our clients to come in every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks forever, because it's just not going to happen. Not really.
No, that's right. And I with Premax and whatever and social media and, we always talk about kind of like brand ambassadors and whatever. And when you combine kind of like personal brand and your clients, really one of the things for me is like, I want everyone who's come to see me as an ambassador of me, in that they may not come back and see me ever again, which is fine, but they might tell 25 other people that I was wonderful. And then I'm kind of busy as well. And it goes back to what we we're talking about before. If they have a very clear objective and a goal in mind, and that's why they've come to see you, and you've helped deliver that for them, then they will talk about you for years to come. Whereas if it's the opposite way and they feel like they're just kind of on a treadmill with you, whether that's just treatment that's not working or it's just regular treatment that they don't want, then they'll be the opposite. Yeah, try and build as many ambassadors as you can through your practice.
Yeah, such a great word. I love it.
So your focus has now changed towards your massage cream of Premax and your online platform of Learn.Physio. We've got different objectives, and we've just talked about brand ambassadors. And I do have a facetious question to ask you a little bit later on, but can you talk us a little bit about the journey of developing those two new focuses for you?
Premax has been around for a long time. Premax has, I think, it's all the way back in 2006 now that Premax started. And the way it started was I had been working, I was full-time physio, sports physio. I was working with the Olympic team, as you mentioned. I was with Hawthorn Football Club. I was at Olympic Park. And in those days, which is nearly 20 years ago now, we were treating with oil, we were treating with petrol-based kind of creams. And so many of my sporty patients would kind of come in and say, thanks so much for the treatment, but can I shower? Or have you got more towels? Because I just feel greasy. I don't want to put for the athletes, I'd say, listen, I've got to go and shower before I go and hit the training track. For some of my corporate clients who are up in the city, they'd say, I just can have a shower because I need to put my suit back on and I just don't like the feeling of this oil or cream on my skin. So at that point in time, like I was thoroughly happy doing what I was doing. I was actually kind of living that dream that I wanted to do as a therapist. But I had a very slight entrepreneurial streak in me as well. And I thought there's a gap here. And in speaking to my wife about it, it's like, why does that have to be that bad? Like, I mean, I love my hand cream. I love my moisturizer. It's like what I rub on my skin can be a wonderful experience. So why don't you do something different? So I did. So, we just started off with a couple of creams. It was Premax Original, which is original because it was the first one. And then we also, which is actually a product that's been discontinued, but there's a product called Premax Sport. And that was a massage cream that also had some wintergreen and menthol in there, and kind of was the combination of like a heat cream and a massage cream.
It was great for clearing the sinuses.
Especially in a small room, apparently.
Yes. It can make the eyes water.
That's it, yeah. And it was just supposed to be a lifestyle on the side business, for us that, if it took us on a holiday each year, then what a great result. But I think that the brief that I always get the question, did you cook these creams up kind of like in your kitchen yourself? It's like, no, I engaged a cosmetic chemist to kind of help it. But the thing that I kind of went to him with was that from a therapeutic point of view, we need a cream and a medium that allows us to feel what we're doing with our hands. And I feel, particularly as a physio, because we do such kind of like isolated, smaller work on scalenes and suboccipitals and glutes and whatever, is that I'm rarely kind of doing large kind of gliding techniques. So I need something with a bit of grip. I need something that I'm not going to slip off with my elbow or my thumb. We need to address the clients and the patient's concern as well. So when we wipe it off, it feels nice and they don't feel greasy, and they're not complaining at the end of it that they want to kind of shower. So I said it needs to be a great massage medium, but it also needs to be a great client experience as well. So that was kind of the brief behind it. And it just kept growing. It particularly grew kind of like within sport. So one of the things that was very fortuitous was that through my network, because I knew a lot of the physios up at the Australian Institute of Sport, which was back in those days was a much bigger operation than it is now, is I sent some samples up to them and they said, we love this cream, we're going to order it. And they continued to order it. Then because the AIS was this hub for all the different kind of national sporting teams to come in and do camps or whatever, the Socceroos would go in there, for a week, and then the Australian swimming team would go in kind of like for a camp or 3 weeks. And because the sports medicine centre was set up where all the creams were just piled in the middle, it was just this amazing sampling opportunity where all these different teams would just continue to cycle in and out of the AIS, and Premax was just sitting there, and then they'll go back and say, we need to order this stuff because it's kind of addressing these athletes' kind of concerns. So within the space of, the first 2 or 3 years, with no marketing, no effort, and I'm not saying this is an easy thing, by the way, it's give me a lot of grey hair, Premax, but it just kind of became synonymous with elite sport. And then it just started to kind of trickle down into more kind of, everyday private practice, that kind of thing as well. So it went from being an idea to a small range of a couple of products to being Australia's best-selling and most premium massage cream brand in about 4 to 5 years. And then it got to the point, it's probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, where we had a range of 5 different massage products, and the people who got treated with it, particularly the athletes, would say, listen, we like getting treated with your creams for all the reasons I mentioned before, but why don't you do something for us? Like I can't find a sunscreen that, like doesn't sting my eyes when I sweat, or, the chafing products that are on the market just don't work well enough. Like I do triathlons and I'm getting chafed, halfway through my triathlon. Can you do something better? You do these great creams. Why don't you do something for me? So that was kind of like the big jump point for me, was to kind of go from a small kind of well-confined professional, what we call B2B kind of operation, into then starting to switch over to offering other products for everyday people. And that's been the journey that we've been on kind of since. So it's been a wonderful and interesting ride. I think one of the things that has just been wonderful for me is that even though I've got a little bit more of a business focus now rather than a clinical one, I'm still talking health, exercise, physio, massage all day, every day, and I make a point of making sure that I'm always the one who will be like all the conferences that we exhibit at, because I like to talk the talk. And the feedback's great because we're no different to any other business, and you want to learn and grow and change as things kind of develop and change as well. So it's been an amazing experience just to stay in the staying industry, even though I've got a little bit more of a business focus now. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Look, changing products was a source of fear for me because I've been using the same thing for quite some time. And I was introduced to Premax by a cyclist and cycle tour operator, a guy by the name of Bade Stapleton, if you're familiar with Bade. And I was traveling with a charity bike ride where these cyclists would do 1,000 kilometers over 6 days or 7 days. And Bade had said, look, this is the product that you will be using with my cyclists. Like, I'm the massage therapist, so I'll use whatever I want. Thank you very much. Anyway, he provided me with the product, and they were using the sunscreen, they were using the chafing cream, and I was using the Premax massage product, and it's a great product. I'm very, very happy to have been introduced to it, and yes, one of your brand ambassadors.
Well, it's a nice story to hear. And yes, I do know Bade. So, and I suppose that's, that's kind of been the vision for me as well, is that using that as a perfect example, going from starting it as just a side project is like the vision now is that anything that people will have rubbed on or rub on themselves, cream or lotion, in an athletic context, why can't Premax do it? Why is there back in the day, it's like, why hasn't any brand thought about doing this? Like,
and the source of fear for me is that as a therapist, it's not just what I put onto the client, but I'm in that product 6 to 7 hours a day. And then finding something which didn't have those nasties in it was super, super important to me.
I agree, and it's an interesting conversation I have with a lot of the physios as well, because some of the products that are out there that are well known, they're actually classed as topical analgesics that are there to help treat pain and whatever. They've created like big pump packs of their product for physios, many health professionals, I should say, to kind of treat with. And so, do you realise that this is a medication? Like this has to kind of go through TGA to kind of get assessed, and it's supposed to be only rubbed in at a certain dosage because, like any medicine or drug, if you exceed that dosage, there can be side effects. You've got your hands in this all day, 5 days a week. Like, are you sure that's going to be the best thing for you? Like, you shouldn't kind of really think about kind of just massaging and treating essentially with topical analgesics the whole of your life. And it's a penny drop moment for a lot of people as well. So it's an important thing to discuss with the therapists.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of our time. Oh, actually, I had a facetious question for you, and this was based on our pre-conversation around online learning and watching videos on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. And there's this growing trend of the crack addicts where they love to watch people having their backs cracked with some horrendous looking devices. Where should therapists be going for good education?
That is a good question. That's obviously a big question as well. And I think that there's some differences clearly kind of between, the different professions as well. Soft tissue therapist, is essentially 100% kind of hands-on medium, not quite, but nearly. So, for you guys to kind of continue to kind of upskill and educate yourself, I think it's important that those sessions should be hands-on. There is a danger in relying on snippets, bite-sized information kind of online, in kind of thinking that, like those 30-second clips that you'll see on TikTok or Instagram, for instance, are going to help build your skills and repertoire and whatever. And this is something like with the Learn.Physio thing that we do as well, is one thing we preach a lot is that as much as people will put out content kind of like on social media those bite-sized pieces of information don't really have context behind it, and they don't have the end-to-end kind of like structure to what normally would be taught. And I think that that's a really important kind of thing for therapists to consider is that a well-designed, well-structured education kind of program, course, seminar, that kind of thing, still definitely kind of has its place, I feel, because then everything can kind of be in a logical order. You can start off with theory and move into more kind of active, practical kind of situations once you've kind of got that knowledge base behind you. So I think that the combination of doing some stuff online that is well structured and has got a method to it, as well as kind of being hands-on and in person, is where health professionals should sit at the moment. I think the combination of both is kind of really important. And I'll dissuade people from thinking that if they're just following the gurus on social media and just seeing bits and pieces of their stuff all the time, that they're getting a comprehensive, well thought through kind of educational experience. It's important that they kind of do it properly, as has been done for decades now.
It should really be kind of that snippet should be just piquing your interest, and then you go and find the course to actually find out what it's all about, really. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's, from a professional point of view, I think that's what it should be. I think that, and that, like we at Learn.Physio, for instance, we do really well on social media. We've got, hundreds of thousands of followers now, and you can combine all our platforms. And we will do that. And, like if you kind of read our posts as well, we'll have something that's 20 seconds, 30 seconds long that might be an exercise, or it might be a quick discussion of, something to do with a study. But then for those who have the time then to kind of read the caption, we'll usually say, this is an excerpt from such and such a course or such and such a masterclass. And we would encourage you to kind of do this fully. Clearly, there's a commercial kind of, element to that we want people to kind of not only just follow us on social media, but also kind of purchase some of our products. But from educators' kind of point of view, and Mick Hughes, who does Learn.Physio with me, has got exactly the same view, is that our primary purpose there is to upskill and improve the profession. So that's why we kind of encourage people to get those bite sizes of information, take it in context that it's just a little bit of a snippet of information to pique your interest, but it's best for you to go and do the whole proper program that will kind of give you the best results.
So you have mentioned it a few times. Tell us, what is Learn.Physio?
So Learn.Physio is an online education platform for health professionals. We've got a number of different formats of classes on there. So we've got master classes, which are 2 to 3 hours, and most of those will revolve around like a specific topic, whether it's hip problems, lower back pain, neck pain, ankle sprains, those kind of things. Then we have a series of classes which are called practicals, and these are very much kind of like the hands-on kind of assessment, treatment, exercise kind of based things that we'll do as physios primarily in a practical context. So it's not theoretical, it's all hands-on. And then we've got a few courses that kind of sit up there as well. So we actually had like Stuart Hines come along and do some manual therapy hands-on kind of sessions. We're just about to film another one with him in a couple of weeks. So we're advocates of the hands-on therapies, and we integrate that into the syllabus. So people can kind of come along and either just purchase one of those classes a la carte. So if there's something that just they find interesting, like we've got one that we put up a couple of months ago, I should say, on like headaches. So headaches is like your thing and you want to learn all about it, you can just purchase that class as it is. Or there's kind of like the full Netflix style subscription where you can kind of pay either a yearly or a monthly fee and get access to all the content, which is dozens and dozens of classes kind of like now on there, and just cherry pick it. I suppose it's kind of in some ways it's hopefully this isn't too grandiose a statement, but the book attributed to Peter and Karam's kind of clinical sports medicine, that was a resource. And if you had a tricky neck or a tricky knee or whatever, you'd go and flick through the book and kind of refresh yourself on what needs to be done. we're bringing that in more of a video kind of context. So you have a patient who's got a really tricky Achilles injury, for instance, and whatever. It's like, I really need to upskill myself before I see this patient next time. We've got Jill Cook, for 6 hours on there kind of talking about that. So what we're finding is there's a lot of practices in there and clinicians who, if they've got a gap, kind of like with their patient list or whatever, they'll just jump onto our platform, do some education, and kind of move on to their next patient after that. So they integrate it kind of like into their clinical day rather than going home and watching it with a bag of popcorn.
We're going to wrap things up, Randall. And my last question to you, which is something, again, that we ask all of our guests, is for new practitioners who are just starting out, and maybe those who are experienced as well, what's the one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting?
The number one piece of advice I'd give is to take your time, because experience matters. It takes a long time for you to become a good therapist. And I usually kind of qualify that with an example myself. And I was hell-bent on being the best sports physio I could be as quickly as possible. And there are all these different courses that are offered kind of by the APA. And the courses that back in those days was you do a level 1 sports physio course, which you usually did like in your first year or two kind of out. Then there was a level 2, which is usually about 3 or 4 or even 5 years out. And there's a level 3 that you actually have to apply to get into. And you do that, it's about 8 to 10 years out. I did the first one like in the first 2 months of being out. And then I desperately wanted to kind of do that level 2 course, which was a 5-day living course up in Sydney at the time. And I applied and I got in only, I think, after about 8 or 10 months of being out, maybe a year or something. And I remember I sat there and there were complex conditions that they spoke about. And everyone else in the group was talking about, that difficult plantar fasciitis, for instance. Like, I've had 5 of those and 3 of them went this way, 2 of them went that way. And I had no idea. It's like, I've never seen one of these. This is just all theoretical to me. This is wasted money and time for me, because I should have spent these 5 days just having my hands on patients more. So when I come and do this session, I can talk with all those others about my experience. And I think that particularly with the younger kind of generation at the moment, there is a very credible kind of impatience to them, if that's the way I put it, in that they do want to kind of progress and really quickly. But it takes time and patience, I think, and just experience is crucial for you to become a great therapist. So make sure you take your time.
That's a really good example. Did you do the course again, Randall?
I didn't, because they actually stopped it. Yeah. So, but then I went on to kind of do my master's degree and stuff. So I've always been a lifelong learner. But yeah, even now, this is like well over 20 years ago. I'm cross at myself for doing it. So.
You live and learn.
You live and learn. That's right.
Well, this has been quite it's been a journey that you've taken us on, Randall. There's a lot of information to process and to digest. Thank you so much for the generosity of your time today. Thanks for coming onto the show. For our listeners out there, if you would like to hear from more guests, please head to our website, foldingtowelspodcast.com.au, hit the Contact Us button and leave us a message. Or if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a rating and a review. And please remember to like and subscribe through your favorite podcast listening app. Thanks for joining us again, Randall. Good to see you again, Jackie.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Randall. We have had an absolute joy. David, as always, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to me, David and Jackie, as well. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everybody. See you.